I like a good dad joke on a Monday morning. So Ana Espinosa and I are here to give you announcements. We are happy to see you. The first one, cab activity this week is cornhole and spike ball tournaments in the CAC on Friday, November 27th at 9 p.m. Actually, you know, my mod knows how good of a cornholer I am, right? Alice, is that not right? Don't shrug. Thank you. You know, I should show up. I might show up. So, teams of 2, sign up on Google Form, and of course, you earn 1 CE point.
Are you traveling for Thanksgiving? Do you need a ride to the airport? You have to contact Abby Rieger in Student Life by the end of the day on Wednesday this week. A ride to the airport is $55, and you can find more information with Abby.
Thank you. Yeah. Also on Wednesday of this week, which is again November 15th, in Souter Room B, there will be another Lunch and Learn with Jose. Here you can also earn 5 CE points. The topic's going to be hope for the holidays. And it's not just like listening to Jose, and this time I think Nick and I are going to try to be there as well, but it's also just a chance for you all to talk and discuss with each other. So Lunch and Learn will include, conflict with family, what does it mean to set boundaries, dealing with grief, and setting proper expectations for the holidays. Next.
Greater Things meets on Sunday, November 19 at 7 p.m. in Yoast Team Room. Those who attend will earn 5 CE points.
Yeah, you're right. Also on Wednesday, so we have lots of things going on Wednesday, which is really good. You may earn 5 CE points for helping to fill what we call Christmas shoe boxes. In the community center that is right across the hall there, from 11 a.m. to 12 noon, you can help Phoebe Kolb, one of our ministry assistants, to put candy and little toys and little notes of encouragement to children. And these boxes could go all the way around the world. Again, that is 11 to 12 noon. November 15th, we'll remind you by email that you can fill Christmas boxes. And now announcements from athletics.
Morning. Big week for athletics last week. The men's basketball team went 2-0 with wins over Tabor and Friends. Rob Gamble had 2 big nights, scoring 12 points and 20 points over both those games. Women's basketball also went 2-0, won their first 2 games of the season, looking really good against Bethany and McPherson. Noriko Welch had 29 points against Bethany and 15 against McPherson, so big nights for both Rob and Noriko. This week coming up, women's basketball will be at Tabor today, Monday, and then Thursday at Sterling. So 2 road games for them. They'll also be on the road next Monday before a nice home stretch. Men's basketball is headed to Council Bluffs, Iowa for a 2-game little tournament thing with Ellsworth Community College on Friday and Iowa Western on Saturday. I assume those games are streaming somewhere, so check those out. Thank you all.
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, and to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. These are our theme verses, and we've been kind of working at this all semester. And I am here to say that one of the ways that we participate with Jesus in being good news to the poor and setting the captives free, recovery of sight to the blind, is to tell the whole story, to tell both sides of the story, to tell the hard stuff as well as the good stuff. And that's what we're going to do today. Thanksgiving is coming up here next, not this Thursday, but the next Thursday. And we're going to talk about that holiday and how November is the Native American Heritage Month. And we're going to talk about a day of mourning. So let's begin by talking about the first Thanksgiving. You can move it to the next one there. Yeah. Most of us only know one side of the story. I imagine if I start to tell it, you could tell the rest of it, right? So we have English settlers or English colonialists coming over. When you were like in elementary school, did you hear them called pilgrims? I'm here, okay. And it might be more appropriate even to call them Puritans, which would be a type of Christian, right? And they came over in 1620 and they landed near Plymouth Rock, Massachusetts, and landed there. That's the first time that they were there. And then that next year in 1621, those colonialists, along with the Wampanoag tribe, had a 3-day, I would call it a feast and a festival, where the Native American tribes shared food. They'd also taught them agricultural skills. It was a day of celebration and joy. And here's the deal. What you heard, for the most part, is true. That's what makes all of this so complicated. It's true, but there is also more to the story, right? It's a complicated, complicated holiday. So let's talk about this. Actually, in the year 1970, the fourth Thursday of the month of November, which that's Thanksgiving, always kind of moves around and shakes, right? Shakes. Yeah. Not only is that Thanksgiving, but it's also the National Day of Mourning for Native Americans and their allies. You might ask, why? So I'm going to start with a quote. This is from the official Wampanoag representative who is giving this quote, and I'll read. Thanksgiving Day is a reminder of the genocide of millions of Native people, the theft of Native lands, and the relentless assault on Native culture. Participants in National Day of Mourning honor Native ancestors and the struggles of Native peoples to survive today. It is a day of remembrance and spiritual connections, as well as a protest of the racism and oppression which Native Americans continue to experience. So there is another side to the story. So, and on this day, we have some of our Native American friends who do mourn, and some of them actually gather close to Plymouth Rock and have a peaceful rally. But you also know that many Native Americans also celebrate Thanksgiving. Well, how can that be, and why would you do that? Well, doing some research, and again, I'll be reading soon from Stephen Peters, the practice and the culture of giving thanks and being grateful and thanking Creator God, particularly for the food that comes out of the ground and the animals that we eat, is a central part of many Native American cultures. So I'll read to you again. This is from Stephen Peters, who's a Wampanoag tribe spokesman. I think it's great, he says, and here he's talking about Thanksgiving. My ancestors had 4 harvest festivals throughout the year, gathering with family, enjoying company, sharing our blessings, and giving thanks for all that we have is a good thing. I say have more Thanksgiving events throughout the year. But I also ask that you all take a moment that day to remember what happened to my people and the history as it was recorded, and not the narrative that we have been given in our history books. So again, there are both sides. So on one hand, it is true that many, maybe almost all Americans celebrate Thanksgiving, but for other people, it's a painful day. It's also true, number 2, that it's complicated because while the day itself was a peaceful, joyful day, there's another side to it. Because this day kind of marks the beginning of the infiltration and colonialization and of English settlers. It's complicated because it's painful. The horrible history that followed that day could be said to have started that day. Even though it didn't literally, it was a joyous day, but within just a couple years, the Native Americans were deeply hurt by this colonial invasion. Let's talk about what happens later on in history. First, we have just, there's some truth to this, an accusation that the Puritans did some grave robbing and stealing of food. What we believe happened is that they discovered an abandoned site by the Patuxet native tribe, and they took stored food and items from the graves, but nobody was there. This tribe had earlier that year been killed by an epidemic, and the remnant of that tribe had joined neighboring tribes. Then, 15 years later, there's the Pequot massacre. And here you have the Puritans, that's the Christian group, the Wampanoag, and the Narragansett tribe, all three of those groups together, they're allies fighting on the same side, fighting against another native tribe, and in essence, they wiped them out. And I'm just going to make a little statement here because I just need to. That doesn't sound like Jesus for the Christians involved there. And then, going to get a little worse, 50 years later, those three groups who are working together are now fighting each other. And the terrible thing in King Philip's War is that the Wampanoag tribe is pretty much decimated. The very tribe that hosted the first Thanksgiving, shared their agricultural skills, shared their food, 50 years later are wiped out. So I'm going to read a little bit from my colleague and friend, Dr. Peter Lehman. Some may argue, well, no, we're not commemorating King Philip's War or the Pequot Massacre. We're commemorating 1621 Harvest Festival. And this is true. It's true. But it's also true that Thanksgiving is in a way celebrating the arrival of Puritans in North America, since this was their first successful harvest. And if we put it that way, then you have to really wonder, in the long term, was the Puritan presence a good thing for Native American nations or not? And we have to say, I say with Dr. Lehman, it wasn't. So here, to conclude, it was a good day, but in the long run, was the presence of the English settlers a good thing for Native Americans? No. I just want to take a minute to pause in silence for this. This can kind of hurt. But again, can we love each other enough to understand all sides of the story? It is my deep honor and privilege to introduce one of my favorite people here on campus, Cheyenne Blaser. We've had several classes together. Yes, give her a great big hand. And Cheyenne has graciously said yes to being interviewed and talking to us a little bit about what it means to be Navajo and all of those wonderful things. First, we're going to talk about Native American Heritage Month. What do you wish people to know about this month, Cheyenne?
Okay, so for almost, November has been known to be, you have it right here, sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
If you guys didn't know, November is Native American Heritage Month, a month where indigenous cultures are shared and honored. Sharing Native American culture gives people a chance to learn about our history and understanding. It gives us an appreciation for our heritage to promote respect and inclusivity. But also in doing so, you have to acknowledge the struggles and discrimination our communities have faced and are still facing today in our nation. It inspires hope that there are present indications that we are moving towards a new era of awareness and improvement towards indigenous welfare. Most recently, on October 31st, the White House came out with a proclamation that lists budgets and orders that are being approved now and in the future to support Native Americans and make amends. Things like executive orders and budgets being approved don't sound like much, but allocation of assistance and support has never been sanctioned at this level in our nation's history. This allows American communities to have resources that they need to be successful and grow. Most importantly, this proclamation provides more assistance in the growing epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples. This awareness is what Native American Heritage Month is about in recognizing the culture as a whole.
Yeah, thank you. So, Cheyenne, what makes you so proud to be Navajo?
Thank you. I identify with the Navajo Nation. I'm proud to be such part of a rich and diverse culture. Being a part of the Navajo Nation means that I'm responsible for carrying my heritage. I'm connected to all of my ancestors and the family who've come before me. It's my responsibility to bring honor to their lives and their stories because it's because of them I can be here today. I mainly remember stories that my grandmother would tell me when she was a young adult. She was forced into assimilation schools, and she was banned from her traditions that were sacred to our family as well as ceremonies, and she was forced to leave her reservation and ancestral lands. It was this violence that she faced and the violence that took hundreds of lives and tore families apart that caused generational damage, and she spoke of that still sticks with me today. And through all of it, she never forgot to remind me to stay proud. Stay proud because of no matter how oppressed the Indigenous peoples were, we showed resilience. And even today, Native Americans have shown that we are still here and we're fighting and we won't ever leave our lands.
Cheyenne, stay up just for a little bit. Yeah, because I want to make sure and get you. Yeah, I just want to say, first of all, what a wonderful grandma you have, and second of all, I see the resilience in you, and that makes me proud and amazed and so encouraged. You inspire me to also work for justice, and I want to thank you for that. So just to know, at Hesston College, like in biblical class, we're talking about the healing of the 4 relationships. And one of those big relationships is between us and other people groups. And that's what we're trying to do today as we hear each other's stories. Before Cheyenne leaves, we both want you to know that right now there's a current struggle with the Apache Nation. The Apache Stronghold met 2 weekends ago and had an all-day ceremony. Right now there's a fight for something called Oak Flats, where there's lots of copper there, but this also is their sacred ground. This would be like a beautiful cathedral in Europe or in a big city here in the United States that we would tear apart. It would be like tearing my church apart. This is their church. And the U.S. is wanting to sell this to a big mining company in Australia. And many of us are fighting for that. There was a 2-hour prayer service that we had for that, where people of many different faiths are trying to get together to help save their land and respect and honor their culture. It's an ongoing struggle. So if you want to get on Google and put some comments in or add this to your prayers, please do. Cheyenne, I just once again want to say thank you. You inspire us, and blessings to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have another 2 people that also inspire me greatly, and that is Ken Rodgers and his sister, Florence Schloniger, who cannot be here with us, but Ken will share all the stories. Ken, just know that even though you are this marvelous music professor, what you teach us about right and wrong and God's love is more expansive than words can ever say. Thank you for your ministry among us. Let's give him a big hand.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you, Cheyenne, very much. In my religious tradition, we don't always have a time of confession, but when I attend an Episcopal church, which I love the liturgy and service of the Episcopal church, during the time of confession, they always say, "Forgive us our sins, known and unknown." And that's an important concept for me, the idea that what are unknown sins? And a lot of times we think of our own personal stories, that it's something that we have done. And what are the stories that we tell? The stories that I was told growing up on a farm just about 5 miles outside of Hesston were the stories of my ancestors who came to this country fleeing religious persecution. One of the books that was in my home, and I love to look at the pictures, was called The Martyr's Mirror. It's a huge book of people who were killed for their faith. And my ancestors, as did the Puritans, came to this country escaping religious persecution. And when I would hear on another side about slavery, I would think, well, my family did not do that, thank goodness. We were not part of that. Until my brother-in-law started doing really deep genealogical research and realized and said that one of our ancestors, oh wow, in the census, there's a slave listed. And that should not have made a difference, because the reality is the generational wealth of this country was built on the back of enslaved people. To me, that's an unknown but should be known sin, but something that I was not directly a part of, but I benefit from. So what do you do with that? In the 1800s, the northern half of Kansas, what is now Kansas, would have been the home of the Kanza people, or the Kaw. The Kanza are the people who were, the name of this state comes from, Kansas. And also another state, Arkansas, the same people. And they were very close with the Iowa. And the name Topeka, our state capital, is a Kanza word. But by the mid-1800s, they were slowly being pushed into smaller and smaller places. If you drive to Kansas City, you pass a place called Council Grove, not far from there. And that was the last home of the Kanza people, a small 20-mile square spot where they used to have the entire state practically as their hunting grounds as a nomadic people. And they were moved to Oklahoma. And by the time they were moved to Oklahoma, they were less than 1,000 members. They were so fearful that they would die out that they gave away their sacred objects. They gave their sacred dances to another tribe so that they could continue. So when my great-grandparents came here and settled in this area, there were no Kanza here. And yet, we bought the land that had been theirs. So what do you do with that? One of the things we can do is we can acknowledge that. I'd like to show you a short video of one of the problems I have with land acknowledgement.
Hello. First, I'd like to remind everyone here to turn off your cell phones. Before we begin this evening's performance, we would like to acknowledge that this theater stands on territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and the Petun First Nations. We are also mindful of broken covenants and the need to make right with all our relations. And now, please enjoy the show.
Oh, sorry, hello? Sorry, excuse me, should we go?
Excuse me?
Oh, no, I just mean if we're on someone else's land, shouldn't we leave?
Oh, no. The theater is here now. We'd just like to acknowledge whose land it is.
I'm sorry, I'm so confused. So if we're on someone else's land, shouldn't we do something about that, or?
Hopefully we'll enjoy the performance.
Oh, okay, so some of the money from the ticket sales of the show are going to the indigenous communities?
Well, no.
Oh, a portion of them?
No, the ticket sales go to the theater.
So is the money from the bottled water sold here going to the First Nations for clean drinking water, or?
Oh no, that money goes to Nestle.
Nestle.
They're a sponsor.
I'm so sorry. I'm so confused. So whose land are we on? What are we doing?
It's a dialogue.
How are we making right?
Well, there's a plaque you can read in the lobby.
I don't understand.
I'm getting a message from the stage manager that we need to begin the show, so please take your seats.
But,
Have a good time.
but,
Good night.
guess I'll sit down. Enjoy the show. Just enjoy the show.
When my mother died, the last of the farmland that I grew up on was sold because none of my siblings in the area were interested in continuing farming. And my oldest sister and I particularly wanted to know what we could do to work at acknowledging the land that we owned and cared for very deeply for 3 generations, what would happen with it, and what we could do to acknowledge and perhaps make conciliation with the Kaw and Kanza people. Through a series of things, my sister was able to connect with a woman by the name of Pauline Sharp, a Kanza woman whose grandmother was the first woman Kaw chief. And she does a one-woman show about her life, which we're hoping to have her here in January. It's a wonderful story. And so she has established what's called the Kanza Heritage Society, which is working at preserving Kaw language, Kaw tradition, and getting some of their important sacred relics back and keeping them now in Kaw City, Oklahoma, and reestablishing a park in Kansas, which was the last home of the Kanza people. Now they have an annual powwow there, which I have attended, which was really a wonderful thing to do. And so we were able to give money, a portion of the money from what we received of our inheritance, to the Kanza Heritage Society. And it was wonderful not because it felt like it was not ours to give, but it also was something that was humbling not because of what we had done, but because of the way it was received, of being able to build a relationship with people that we didn't know, and that's become very important. One of the things that surprised me, one of the things about many Native cultures is gift giving. And so when I was, go ahead. When I gave the Kanza Heritage Society a check, Pauline gave me a Pendleton blanket. And on it is a turtle. For many Native American tribes, the symbol of the turtle, the earth is called Turtle Island. And it's interesting because amphibians such as turtles are the first place that we see where there is poison, and when there's problems with the environment, those are the first animals to react to it. So the turtle, the idea that we are living on Turtle Island, I think is a powerful one. It was really humbling to be able to receive this, and so it's something that has been an important place in my home. And it's an ongoing journey. So I'm going to let Michelle talk about what we'll be doing in January.
Thank you, Ken. Let's give him a big, warm round of applause. Yeah. In the spring term, we will continue this conversation in January. Mark Charles, a Navajo friend of mine and Dell's, will come, and we're going to work Sunday night through Tuesday, January 19th through 21, and talk about the concept of the doctrine of discovery, which is a church bill that kind of misused the Bible and gave permission for people to do things like slavery and genocide and stealing of native lands. And he's going to come and he's going to tell us hard truths, but he's also going to come and give us some hope. Ken Rodgers will lead us in Turtle Island simulation on Monday night, and that'll be fascinating too. So I hope you all come. I want to send my apologies because somehow I accidentally left out the works cited thing, so I will send that to all of you where it was there? Okay, oh whoosh, all right. But anyway, thank you so much. Ken, Cheyenne, everyone, have a blessed, blessed Monday. Amen.